I always thought my family was boring, stable, predictable, the kind of suburban normal that people make sitcoms about. My dad was a high school history teacher who smelled like coffee and chalk dust. My mom worked from home doing accounting for small businesses. I was an only child who grew up with an uncomplicated life. No major drama, no family secrets. Or so I thought. Everything changed because of a stupid water leak. 3 months ago, a pipe burst in our basement. My parents were out of town for their anniversary trip, and since I lived only 20 minutes away, Mom asked me to check on the house. I didn't expect to find the basement half flooded. I freaked out, called a plumber, and while they worked, I tried to move everything off the floor so nothing important got ruined. That's when I noticed Dad's old gun safe, one I had literally never seen open in my entire life. The water hadn't reached it yet, but the carpet around it was soaked. I tried to shift it, and to my surprise, it moved more than I expected. And something clinked inside, a metallic, hollow sound. Not the kind a gun makes. That's when another surprise hit. The keypad was dead from the moisture, which meant that to save the contents from water damage, I had two options: break it or leave it and hope for the best. Dad had always been weirdly protective of that safe. Once when I was 12, I asked what was inside, and he told me, just documents and boring grown-up stuff. Then he changed the subject so fast, you'd think I asked him about his browser history. But that day, staring at the soaking carpet creeping closer and closer, something in my gut told me, open it. I called a locksmith, told him it was an emergency. He came within 2 hours. When he cracked it open, he stepped aside and said, all yours. I wish he hadn't. Inside weren't guns or jewelry or documents. There were letters, dozens of them, stored neatly in waterproof bags, and all addressed to my son. At first I didn't think anything of it. I assumed they were letters from Dad, some kind of weird emotional time capsule. Maybe he wrote them in case something happened to him. He was sentimental like that. But the return address, that froze me. It wasn't my dad's name. It was M.R. Whitaker. I didn't know anyone with that name. And the strangest part? The dates. The oldest letter was dated a week before I was born. Hands shaking, I opened the first one. It started with, if you're reading this, then the truth finally reached you. I'm sorry I never got to be part of your life. They didn't give me a choice. I sat on the flooded basement floor, water soaking into my jeans, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear myself breathe. I tore open another envelope. I've spent years watching from a distance. I wasn't allowed near you, but I've never stopped thinking about you. One day, you'll know why. Another. Your mother and I made mistakes, but you were never one of them. Another. He promised me he'd take care of you as if you were his own. I agreed to disappear if it meant you would grow up safe. And then, one that stopped my heart entirely. Your father is a good man, but he's not me. I must have sat there for at least 20 minutes, reading and rereading that line. My father, the man who raised me, taught me to ride a bike, coached my soccer team, stayed up with me when I had nightmares, was not my biological dad. And then another question hit me. Why did he hide these letters instead of giving them to me? Why did he keep them at all? And the worst one, who the hell is M.R. Whitaker? My hands were shaking so badly I dropped one of the envelopes. A small Polaroid fell out. It showed a man I had never seen in my life. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, deep eyes that somehow looked like mine. On the back, in the same handwriting as the letters, were just 4 words. When you're ready. M. I felt sick. When my parents got home that evening, I was waiting at the kitchen table with a stack of letters in front of me. Dad walked in first, smiling. Hey, bud. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw the envelopes. His face drained of color so fast I thought he was going to pass out. Mom froze too. Her purse slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Nobody spoke for a full 10 seconds. Not until I said, "Who is M.R. Whitaker?" Dad didn't answer. Mom didn't blink, and in that silence, heavier than anything, I understood one thing. They both already knew. My mom was the first to move. She reached for a chair but missed it and steadied herself on the counter instead. Dad just stood there, staring at the letters like they were radioactive. "Where did you get those?" he finally whispered. "The safe," I said. "The basement flooded. The keypad died. I had to open it." Dad closed his eyes. God? Mom covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders trembling. I want an explanation, I said. I wasn't yelling, but my voice sounded tighter than I expected. Who is this man? Why does he call me his son? And why did you hide every letter he sent me for my entire life? Dad sank into a chair like someone cut the strings holding him up. He didn't look at me, not once. Mom finally sat next to him, but she couldn't meet my eyes either. I never wanted you to find out this way, Dad said quietly. That's not an answer. He rubbed his forehead. We were going to tell you one day. When? I snapped. When I turned 30? When you were on your deathbed? Because these letters were addressed to me, not you. He wanted me to know. Mom flinched. You weren't supposed to see them. Why? I demanded. She exhaled shakily, then looked at Dad, like she was waiting for permission. He nodded once. Mom turned to me, eyes red. Because your biological father, he's dangerous. That word hit me harder than everything else. Dangerous how? I asked. She hesitated, too long. Mom, tell me. She swallowed. Because he's involved with people, very powerful people, the kind you don't cross, the kind who don't forgive mistakes. For a second, I thought she was exaggerating. Then I saw Dad's expression. Pure fear. What kind of people? I asked. Dad pushed the letters away like they disgusted him. Organized crime. My stomach dropped. I laughed, but it came out sounding like a choke. Come on, that's ridiculous. I wish it were, Dad said. Mom finally continued. Before I met your father, your dad, I was stupid, young. I fell in with a man who seemed exciting, charismatic, intense. He wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. M.R. Whitaker, I said. She winced. Matthew, his name is Matthew. What was he to you? She lowered her voice. My boyfriend. And later, someone I was afraid to leave. Dad added quietly. When she got pregnant with you, she tried to break things off. That didn't go well. I felt cold all over. Mom nodded. He said the child was his. He said that meant he owned me. And you. Every hair on my arm stood up. I was terrified, she whispered. So I ran. I disappeared. I changed everything about my life. I cut ties with everyone. And then you met me, Dad said, placing a hand gently on hers. She nodded. He was the first person who made me feel safe again. I wanted to be angry. I expected to be angry, but instead, I just felt hollow. So you married each other, I said, and you decided to pretend I was his? You are mine, Dad said quickly. I raised you. I loved you. The biology doesn't matter. Then why hide the letters? I asked. Why not tell me the truth? Mom wiped her face. Because Matthew didn't just let me leave. He made a deal. Dad nodded. He agreed to stay out of your life, but only if she agreed never to tell you about him, and only if he could send letters to check that you were alive and okay. My mind reeled. So the letters, they weren't sentimental, they were surveillance. Dad hesitated. Some of them, yes. Others, I think he really wanted to reach out. There was always this tension. He wanted to know you, but he also didn't want to pull you into his world. Mom added, and we promised him we'd keep you away from him. I stared at the letters on the table, but you kept them. You didn't destroy them. Dad's voice cracked. Because I hoped one day you'd be old enough for the truth, old enough not to go looking for him. Mom's voice dropped to a desperate whisper. Please tell me you're not going to look for him. I didn't answer, because despite everything, a part of me, the part that kept staring at the Polaroid of the man with my eyes, was already curious, already wondering, already wanting to know. Do you know where he is? I asked. Mom's reaction told me everything. She froze, completely. Dad's jaw tightened. You do, I said quietly. Don't you? Mom finally whispered. We got a letter last year, the last one, saying he was sick. What kind of sick? We don't know, Dad said. He didn't say, just that he wanted to see you, one time, before he died. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. And you didn't tell me? Mom's voice was barely audible. We were scared he'd drag you in. The room fell into heavy silence. Then I asked the question they were begging me not to. Where is he now? Dad reached for the letters, but I grabbed them first. Tell me, I repeated. Mom closed her eyes. He's in Ravenwood Correctional Facility. I blinked. A prison? She nodded. My world tilted. What did he do? Dad answered this time. Everything. The word everything echoed in my head like a siren. I sat back, gripping the letters so tightly the edges bent. My father, my biological father, wasn't just dangerous. He wasn't just involved with the wrong people. He was in prison for everything. Start talking, I said. What does that mean? Dad exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. Matthew Whitaker was involved in organized crime, money laundering, racketeering, extortion, the kind of things that get you on federal lists. Mom added, voice cracking. And when I got pregnant with you, he was rising through the ranks, becoming someone important, someone feared. I felt sick again. So you ran. I had to, she whispered. I didn't want you growing up in that world. Dad nodded. She came to me terrified, and I fell in love with both of you before I even met you. That should have comforted me. But my mind was miles away, back on the man in the Polaroid, back on the handwriting that filled those letters with emotion I couldn't understand. And he just let you go? I asked. No, Mom said, her voice cracked. He hunted me for months. He tracked down people I knew, called my parents, pounded on their door in the middle of the night. My blood went cold. What changed? I asked. You were born, she whispered, and something shifted in him. He didn't calm down, but he realized chasing me wasn't safe for you, or him, or anyone. Dad took over. He proposed a deal. He'd stay away forever, he'd let me raise you, he'd disappear, as long as she never told you the truth. Mom nodded. And as long as he could send letters and occasionally see you from afar. See me? I repeated. He watched me? She nodded again, ashamed. Never close, never without protection, but he wanted to know you were okay. I didn't know whether to feel violated or weirdly comforted. So he's been in my life, just not in it. Yes, Mom whispered. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The room felt too small, too hot, too overwhelming. And then a thought hit me, sharp and dangerous. What if I want to meet him? Mom gasped like I slapped her. Dad's eyes hardened instantly. No, he said, not a suggestion, an order. You don't get to tell me that, I snapped. You both lied to me for 24 years, Mom's voice shook. We lied to protect you. That's what everyone says before admitting they manipulated someone. That hit her harder than I expected. Dad squeezed her hand, glaring at me. I'm not letting you walk into a prison to meet a criminal who once claimed he owned you, Dad said. Absolutely not. But the more they pushed, the more the desire burned inside me, because I needed answers. Who was this man? Why did he let me go? And why, after decades, did he suddenly want to see me before he died? I took the letters upstairs to my old bedroom and locked the door. I spent the rest of the night reading every single one. There were over 40 letters. Some were short. Updates on his life, regrets, cryptic hints about keeping my distance to keep you clean. Others were longer, memories he kept of my mother, apologies that sounded genuine, stories about his childhood, things about him nobody else seemed to know. But there were also darker parts, lines like, there are things I've done that I can't take back, things I never wanted you to carry, and one day you'll know why I had to stay away. And the most unsettling, your mother thinks I'm a monster. Maybe she's right, but even monsters love their children. I didn't sleep at all. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going to see him, whether my parents liked it or not. The next day, I drove to Ravenwood Correctional Facility. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't tell Dad. I didn't text anyone. I just punched the address into my GPS and followed it. Ravenwood was massive. Gray concrete walls topped with razor wire, guard towers, metal gates, the whole stereotypical nightmare. As I walked through security, my legs trembled so badly I thought I might collapse. I kept reminding myself this was insane, ridiculous, dangerous. But it didn't stop me. They buzzed me into the visitation room, a long hall with metal tables bolted to the floor. Inmates in orange jumpsuits sat across from their visitors. A guard escorted me to a table in the back. "Wait here," he said. My heart hammered so hard I could barely hear my own breath. And then he walked in, older, thinner, gray streaking through his hair. But the moment our eyes met, something slammed into my chest, because it was like looking into a mirror 25 years older. He froze. His hands twitched. His eyes glistened with tears immediately. No hesitation, no shame. He sat down slowly, never breaking eye contact. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Neither could he. Then he whispered, voice trembling, "I never thought I'd see you with my own eyes again." My throat tightened. "You're Matthew Whitaker." He gave a sad smile. "Just Matt. To you, just Matt." We stared at each other for another painful moment before I forced myself to ask, "Why did you want to see me now?" He breathed out shakily and looked down at his hands. "I'm dying." My stomach dropped. "How long?" I asked quietly. "Months," he whispered. "Maybe less." I didn't know what to feel. Pity, anger, nothing? But then he lifted his gaze and said something that made my blood freeze. "There's something you don't know. Something your mother didn't tell you. Something she was never supposed to tell you." I leaned in, heart pounding. He swallowed hard. "You're not the only one in danger." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "What do you mean I'm not the only one in danger?" I asked. Matt looked over his shoulder instinctively, even though a guard stood 5 feet away. Then he leaned closer to me and lowered his voice. "I need you to listen carefully. What I'm about to tell you, it's the reason I stayed away, the reason your mother ran, the reason I'm rotting in this place instead of buried in a field somewhere." I swallowed. "Then tell me." He took a shaky breath. "I didn't leave the organization willingly. I didn't go to prison because I was caught. I went because I made a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where you sentence yourself," he said, "to save someone else." I felt my chest tighten. He was talking about me. I knew it. He nodded slowly, confirming my thought. "You weren't supposed to exist," he whispered. "Not in their world. And when your mother got pregnant, some people wanted the problem handled permanently." My blood went ice cold. "They wanted her dead?" I whispered. He nodded. "And you with her?" My stomach twisted. "Why?" I asked. "Because of you? Because I was your son?" "Because I was rising too fast," he said. "Because I had enemies. Because a child meant weakness, attachment. Something they could use. Something they could destroy." I felt like the room tilted. The hum of fluorescent lights seemed louder, sharper. "So I ran," he said. "Like she did. I hid her, helped her disappear. I kept you two alive long enough for her to find your dad." He smiled faintly, not warm, broken. "I picked a good man," he said, "a man better than me." I didn't know what to say to that. I stared at him, trying to reconcile this version of him with the monster my mother described, with the criminal in front of me, with the man who wrote 40 letters he never sent. "Why tell me this now?" I asked. "Why wait 20 years? He looked down at his hands, scarred, rough, shaking slightly. "Because I'm dying," he repeated. "And I can't protect you anymore." I frowned. "Protect me from what? The organization? You're gone, you're out, I'm nobody to them." He shook his head slowly, almost pityingly. "You really think they forgot you?" My heart stuttered. "What does that mean?" I asked. He leaned in even closer, voice barely above a whisper. "They know about you." Every muscle in my body tensed. "No," I said. "My parents said, I kept you off the radar for years," he interrupted. "Paid people, threatened others, burned bridges, got myself locked away to keep you out of sight." He paused. "But after I got sick last year, I couldn't keep the payments going, couldn't keep the favors alive, couldn't keep people quiet." A cold sweat broke out across my back. "So they know," he said. "And they're watching." My heart hammered. Watching me, or watching Mom and Dad too? All of you, he said, but mostly you. I stared at him, struggling to form words. Why me? He didn't blink, didn't falter, didn't sugarcoat anything. Because you're my son. The room seemed to freeze. Some men in that world, he said, they want you alive. He paused. Others want you dead. A shiver crawled up my spine. Why in the hell would they want me dead? I asked. Matt's jaw tightened. Because your existence means I broke the only rule they never forgive. He looked sick saying it. Love. Silence fell between us like a guillotine. After a moment, he straightened, wiping his face with his hands. For the first time, I noticed how exhausted he looked, how thin, how fragile. You need to listen to me carefully, he said. You need to take your mother and that man, your dad, and get as far away as you can. Change your names, leave the state, leave the country if you can. Are you serious? I asked. Dead serious. I shook my head. You're paranoid. You've been in here too long. You're imagining things. The look he gave me silenced me instantly. He wasn't imagining anything. You think those letters were sentimental? He asked. They were warnings. They were instructions. They were the only thing I could do without letting them see I cared. I swallowed hard. And now that the payment stopped, he said, they're asking questions, they're digging, and once they find out you came here. How would they find out? I interrupted. His jaw clenched. There's someone in this prison who has access to visitor logs. My blood froze solid. You're saying someone is watching who visits you? They're waiting to see if you show up, he said, to confirm you're real, that you're alive, that you're old enough to be used. Used how? But I already knew the answer. To leverage him, to control him, to punish him. To hurt you, he whispered, to hurt your mother, to hurt anyone they think matters to me. My stomach churned. So what do I do? I asked. He leaned forward, eyes burning with a desperate intensity that didn't belong to a dying man. You walk out of this prison, he said, and you pretend you never came here. You burn the letters. You go home, pack a bag, and leave. Do not go to work tomorrow. Do not tell your friends. Do not post anything online. Do not answer your phone if you don't recognize the number. He took a trembling breath. Because they'll come looking. My throat tightened. For me? He nodded. Starting tonight. Before I could respond, a guard approached. Time's up. Matt didn't break eye contact with me, not once. As the guard grabbed his arm, he said one last thing. Urgent, terrified, pleading. Run. The word run echoed in my skull long after the guard led him away. I stood there frozen, hands trembling, legs numb. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the metal tables glinted dully. Inmates murmured in the background, but all of it felt distant, like I was underwater. I walked out of Ravenwood like a ghost, out the gates, across the parking lot, into my car. I sat there for almost 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, replaying his words. They're watching. They know you exist. They'll come looking. Tonight. It sounded insane, like a plot out of some crime show. But the way Matt said it, calm, serious, certain, made my stomach twist. He wasn't lying, or at least, he believed every word. I should have driven straight to the police station, or home, or anywhere that wasn't a prison parking lot. Instead, I pulled out the Polaroid of him, the one from the safe, and compared it to the man I had just seen. The eyes were the same, the grief was the same, the fear was real. I swallowed hard. Then I started the car. When I got home, Mom and Dad were waiting in the living room. They looked up at the sound of the door slamming, and the expressions on their faces told me everything. They knew. You went to see him, Mom said, voice barely above a whisper. Dad stood abruptly. Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea what you've done? I threw the car keys on the table. How did you know I was gone to see him? We called you, Dad snapped. You ignored us. Then your mother logged into the GPS on your phone. Nice, I said coldly. More secrets, more control. Mom stood slowly, tears already building. Please tell me he didn't tell you. He told me everything, I interrupted. About the organization, about the threats, about people who still want to find me, about the deal he made. Dad went pale. He said that? He said a lot, I replied, but the part that stood out is that we're all in danger. Right now. Mom covered her mouth. No, 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 no. Dad slammed his fist on the table so hard the wood cracked. He promised they wouldn't come near you. I stared at him. He also said the only reason they stayed away was because he paid people to keep them away, and now he's dying. A horrifying stillness filled the room. Dad whispered, "Oh God." Mom whispered, "We need to pack." I blinked. "So you believe him?" Dad didn't hesitate. "Your biological father might be a criminal, but he never lied to us. Not about this." Mom grabbed his arm. "If they know where he is, if they know he's dying, they'll assume you'll go see him." I swallowed. "Well, I did." Mom looked like she might faint. "Then we need to leave, tonight." Dad nodded, already moving toward the stairs. "Grab your essentials. No electronics except the bare minimum. No laptops, no tablets. Just clothes, IDs, and cash." Mom hurried to help. I stood there, stunned. "You're serious? We're actually running?" Dad stopped on the stairs and turned to look at me. "Son," he said quietly, "you think I'm proud of this? You think I want to uproot our entire lives because of a man I swore to never let near you? But if Matt said run, then we run." Something crashed inside me, a mix of fear, disbelief, and anger. "All because of me," I whispered. Mom rushed down and grabbed my shoulders. "No, because of them. Because they don't let go. Because your existence is leverage." I felt dizzy. Dad said, "We have maybe a few hours before anyone realizes you visited him, maybe less." That's when I noticed the front curtain shift. A shadow passed over the window. I froze. "Did either of you invite someone over?" I whispered. Mom shook her head instantly. Dad moved toward the window carefully, quietly, and peeked through the blinds, his face drained of all color. "What is it?" I whispered. He swallowed hard. His voice barely came out. "There's a car parked across the street. Black, no plates." My heart dropped to my stomach. Mom grabbed my arm in a vice grip. Dad whispered, "They're here." Before I could respond, 3 knocks sounded on the door. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Dad motioned for silence. Mom clutched my hand so tightly her nails dug into my skin. Another set of knocks. Harder. My pulse thundered. Dad whispered, "Upstairs. Now." We quietly backed away from the foyer. Halfway up the stairs, bang! The door shook violently. Mom gasped. I nearly lost my balance. "Bang! Bang!" Dad whispered. "They're trying to break the lock." We ran, up the stairs, into the hallway. As we reached the top, the front door burst open downstairs. Mom screamed. Dad pushed us into their bedroom and locked the door. "Closet," he whispered. "Go! Now!" We climbed inside, hearts pounding, barely able to breathe. Dad whispered through the door, "Don't make a sound." Footsteps creaked across the wooden floor downstairs. Slow, unhurried. Whoever was inside wasn't worried about being caught. A voice drifted up from the living room, a man's voice, calm, smooth, cold. "Where is the boy?" Mom covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Dad pressed a finger to his lips. Another man answered from the hallway. "Check upstairs." Footsteps began climbing the stairs, deliberate, measured, certain. I had never felt fear like that. Not in my entire life, Dad whispered, shaking. "Don't move, don't breathe." But the footsteps were getting closer, 10 steps away. 5, 3. They stopped right outside the bedroom door, and then the doorknob turned.